Well, two-thirds of voters think that Deputy Labour leader Angela Rayner should publicly reveal the tax advice on the sale of her former council house. That's according to a new poll.
Yes, this is very interesting indeed, because lots of people have been very keen to downplay the importance of this story. But Labour might not be cracking down on Rayner's tax problems, but they certainly are on Britain's, they're saying, with Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves unveiling the party's new plans to get tough on what they call tax dodgers.
But is this terrible timing for the Labour Party given the Rayner tax scandal? Well, we're joined now by Tryl, the UK director of More in Common, the company behind this new polling. And Luke, just first of all, what did your poll actually reveal?
So we asked in this poll whether the public thought that given the coverage of Angela Rayner's house sale and the suggestion that the right amount of tax wasn't paid, whether she should publish the advice that she was given, that tax advice. And what we found was that two-thirds of voters said that she should publish that advice. It was less than 1 in 5 that felt that she shouldn't. And I think the reason that this is particularly important, and I think it's particularly important for Angela Rayner, because one of the things I should say is that Angela Rayner is a very popular politician with the public. In fact, when we do focus groups, people often say she's the only politician that speaks for ordinary people. She's authentic, she's relatable. And I think the challenge is, by being seen to be evasive on this issue, she's undermining that reputation with the public. And I think that's why this matters.
Luke, do you think some people will be surprised by what you found with this polling, that about two-thirds of the public want her to reveal her tax advice? Because there were lots of people, and of course including the Labour Party, who want to sweep this story under the carpet. Lots of people saying, oh, she doesn't need to reveal her tax advice. She said she hasn't done anything wrong. That's enough. But it does seem like the public care about this story more than some might have hoped.
Well, it's worth saying, I mean, it's quite a complex story in terms of trickling through to the public. And, you know, the public are often likely in poll questions to say they want transparency from politicians. But I do think this goes to showing that actually, you know, when faced with that question, the public say, actually, we would like to see this advice and be able to come to our own judgment on what happened. And I think this particularly matters for Labour as they go into the election, because we know the public are very cynical. Trust in politicians is very low. There have been a series of, you know, what you might call scandals, which have eroded that trust. And I think Labour will be determined to show, look, we're turning over a new leaf. We're going to be more transparent than what's come before. And I think by not being forward with this advice, they're risking damaging that. So whilst I don't think, you know, this scandal is sort of, you know, fatal to Angela Rayner's career in any way, I think it's the broader impact that it's likely to have on her brand, which matters, which, as I say, is one of authenticity and speaking and saying it like it is.
It's interesting, a lot of the time people refer to the Labour Party as a new iteration of Tony Blair's Labour Party of 1997. And with that leadership of the Labour Party back then in the 90s, you had the balancing act of Tony Blair and John Prescott. Blair was the slick former lawyer, and Prescott, of course, the more authentic working class voice. That balancing act really worked for New Labour in the late 1990s. Is there a risk now that that same sort of deputy leader situation could be undermined by this scandal?
I think there is a risk, and I think the reason there's a risk is because it is abundantly clear that Angela Rayner can speak to a whole group of voters that Keir Starmer can't speak to. Actually, when you present them to voters in a focus group as a package, they're actually much more positive about either of them individually. And she does give Keir Starmer something else. We know that, you know, people say about Keir Starmer, oh, you know, he's a bit lawyerly. I'm not sure how in touch he is. He's not perhaps that exciting. And actually, Angela Rayner brings something else, which is why, as I say, I think it would be, you know, a shame if this scandal and the sense that she's been evasive undermined that reputation, and as you say, posed a risk to that kind of that contrasting team, which seems to work quite well.
And Luke, what about Keir Starmer's position on all of this? How's that going down? He's saying, essentially, my team have seen the advice, I have not myself seen the advice. What's all that about?
Well, I'm not sure what it's about from his perspective, but again, I would say, we've seen, if we look at some of the issues which have affected Rishi Sunak, it has undoubtedly damaged him personally when he's been seen to be too slow to act or not on top of what, his ministers have been doing. And I think Keir Starmer might find himself in a similar position if he's not seen to be gripping this situation. Now, that doesn't mean, getting rid of Angela Rayner, we don't know the facts, and she's given very fulsome reassurances that she followed the advice and didn't do anything wrong. But I think that's why publishing this advice for both Angela Rayner and Keir Starmer could just be the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, really, really interesting that Keir Starmer's saying continually that he doesn't need to see it, that he won't see it. Could he be insulating himself from anything down the tracks? Well, that is a question. But Luke, Tryl, for now, thank you very much for joining us and talking through your polling. Really appreciate it. UK Director of More in Common.
It does also raise the question of how much, I know there are accusations against Angela Rayner, so that makes it a little bit different. But you often hear people saying there should be complete transparency. If you're a member of Parliament, you should reveal everything about your tax affairs. And that's an interesting question, because I, to some extent, think, no, you shouldn't. It's already tough being in the public, in the public space as it is to be an MP and accountable to your constituents. Should you have to reveal everything?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because a couple of people in the GB Your Say, gbnews.com/Your Say, our new comment system, Warren has said it's not about the amount she owes, it's not about the tax, it's about the hypocrisy. Because Angela Rayner and Keir Starmer last year were saying that Rishi Sunak, Nadeem Zahawi, because he was in a tax scandal at the time, the Deputy Prime Minister, they were saying all of those leading figures in the Conservative Party should publish their tax returns. Yeah. But then now Angela Rayner's saying she doesn't want to publish her own tax advice. I mean, it can't be one rule for the government and a different rule for the opposition.
Well, David Lammy essentially said that there should be. They're not in government, so therefore less scrutiny is required, which is an interesting argument when you're looking to become the next government. Brendan says being evasive just means there is something to hide. That's how it can sometimes appear. We don't know if Angela Rayner has done anything wrong, whether she was given wrong tax advice. We simply don't know. And Keir Starmer, at the moment, is taking an interesting position. My team have seen the advice. I don't need to see the advice. I trust her. Is that enough for you? Clearly it's not enough for the public.
Lots of people will be thinking, is Keir Starmer simply getting ready to throw his own team and Angela Rayner as well under the bus simply for self-preservation?